So it's official, Dane. It's official. We are in the worst time in the year, bar none. This is like right after all the fun holidays are gone. Now you have to sit there and reflect on how you insulted Nana's cooking at Christmas and made an absolute ass of yourself at New Year's Eve when you thought it would be funny to reenact Ace Ventura's butt talking.
Excuse me.
In front of a live studio audience.
Wouldn't that have been last week when we talked about, people may not know about last week?
Oh, yes. Let's inform them just in case they forgot.
If they're the YouTube folks. Yeah, if you were looking for your episode, 127, and you didn't get it last week, it's because it's over on Rumble and Odyssey only because David and I talked about the no-no stuff. You know what the no-no stuff is, the stuff that YouTube won't let us talk about like adults. So as we've warned you before, those episodes will only go up on Rumble and Odyssey. So go check those out. Go to the website, www.podcast.com/127. Of course, you can get the audio-only versions on any podcast catcher. But if you want the videos, Rumble and Odyssey only. So.
It sounds like you were pitching an OnlyFans page right there. If I gotta be honest with you,
if we don't get in the black in 2023, we're gonna have 2024.
Clothes are gonna start being removed. First, it's Dane's tie. Then we go. Then we only escalate.
Things accelerate.
You want us to keep our clothes on?
The tie.
You better start supporting, or else you're gonna see flesh. You got it? I've never threatened anybody with my nudity before. Feels good.
Does it?
Feels good. Anyway, let's get down to brass tacks here.
Power you.
So we have something. We have a meme to destroy today.
We do.
Luckily, there's a Vax chick that had thoughts.
So she's got the. I bet you can probably guess what those thoughts are because these people just regurgitate the same talking points over and over again. But we'll talk about them with you.
Good stuff. Culture Corner. Mastodon, though extinct, still one of the biggest distributors of child porn nowadays.
Odd connection. We'll fill that one in for you.
Fill it right. Well, maybe we shouldn't make
don't make that joke.
About the CP.
Yeah.
CP. I'm going to let that one slide.
Don't worry. We're not on Mastodon. If we're on Mastodon, Nameless Faces Video Guy, get us off ASAP.
We are not into that crap.
Get us off Mastodon. Just get us.
Put us onto Raptor.
Next segment.
Or Tyrannosaurus Rex. Or one of the other dumb animals that died. Anyway, Epstein didn't kill himself. I can't even read my own writing. Distrust of government is bad for you, Dane.
So say the sophisticates.
Yes, says the government. We'll look into that later. Anyway, the main topic of today is that red is blue and blue is red. And there's no difference between the two of them whatsoever. And they use their tactics the same way each and every mind-sucking week.
Some do, for sure. The news item there is the McCarthy vote for Speaker of the House. Again, probably saw that everywhere. We're going to give you our take on all of those events.
All 3 inches. All 3 inches that we have to give you. So other than that, you want to jump in, Dane?
I think we should get going on episode 2 of 2023. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 128, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/128. That's your central source, no matter which platform you found us from. Always key to remember to go to the website and sign up for the email list because that's the one place we will always be, no matter where we get canceled from in the future. It's going to happen.
We've got plans.
Already happened in the past. So if you're on that email list, they can't take it away from us. We'll always be able to reach out to you and let you know where you can find us again. But anyway, this episode can be found there. It can also be found audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. Look for episode 128. On the video platforms, this one is going to be on YouTube. You already know that if you're watching this on YouTube, because you're watching it on YouTube.
You've solved the mystery.
Because we are not talking about the no-no topic. So again, as just to remind you, 127 is over on Rumble and Odyssey if you're a video consumer. But we're just going to have to keep employing that tactic until YouTube grows up.
Or until this world grows up.
So same rule apply. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction, episode 128. Share the link with friends and family. And then link up with us on our other socials. Going to try to remember all of them. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram,
TikTok again,
Facebook, the private Facebook page you can get in for $5 a month. Again, go to the website, support our work. You'll see how to do that. And then also Float, the Facebook competitor. We're also over there.
Not Mastodon. Not Mastodon.
We are not on Mastodon. More on that in a second. I want to say we are also on Truth Social because I don't believe our nameless, faceless video guy who runs that account for us, because we don't have time to deal with those paint chip eaters over there, has decided not to go the route of getting us banned over on Truth Social, but to actually engage with them and see if we can get some listeners from Truth Social.
Why do we get banned from the things
Which,
that
based on me calling them paint chip eaters, is probably not doing us a world of good in that regard. But,
they don't know
potato,
it's
potato.
satire yet.
So those are all the places to find us. Please like, subscribe, share, follow anywhere you can. Most importantly, tell everybody you know about us. Shout our names from the rooftops because we are looking to go in the black.
Do you know how happy it would be, or I would be, if I was just walking through a city one day and I just heard weapons of meme destruction
Someday.
From like a building that I couldn't tell exactly where it was?
I am manifesting it, and I think the moon is in Mercury retrograde.
No, it's in Aquarius.
Spice.
Pisces is in Aquarius, and
So I think our manifestations are going to work.
And the moon is in the 7th house.
There you go. Perfect.
Not to be confused with the 8th.
So with that being said, and talking about fantasy lands, we have in the meme section today a Dr. Natalia over. She is not a blue check. Oh, look at this. I didn't even notice that until just now. She has in her little title bio thing also her handle over on Mastodon. We'll talk about that more in a second. Anyway, Dr. Natalia.
Apparently, she likes CP. Cheese pizza, as they call it in
does not have a blue check, but she does have the other hallmark of Twitter brain deaddom. And that's her Ukraine flag. So she wants to let you know she's better than everybody else. Anyway, her tweet, today's meme is, and this was tweeted on January 1st. She rang in the new year with quite a doozy. She says, quote, "I will never regret." Oh man, this might have to make it not go on YouTube. We'll figure it out as we go along.
We're phrasing. This is somebody else's ideas.
Yes.
This is somebody else's concepts. YouTube,
Actually,
look at me in the face.
It'll be fine. We're not going to say anything bad about it. We're just talking about Dr. Natalia in particular. Okay.
Yeah, specifically her and nothing else surrounding the topic at large.
Exactly. We have no claims to make one way or another about anything related to this topic other than what she has to say about the topic.
Other than her being a booby, stupid head, doo-doo head.
And other things. So, back to her tweet. Quote, "I will never regret the vaccine. Even if it turns out I injected actual poison and have only days to live." Her words, not ours.
Hey,
we are
trigger warning. YouTube, we know.
We are not saying that is what it is. We're not saying it.
We would never.
And she's a good person.
See episode 76.
YouTube. She's a good person, unlike us, because she has a Ukraine flag in her picture, as well as the blue and yellow heart in her bio.
She's been fighting the Russians since she was on Facebook.
Yes. So, anyway, back to her words. Continuing on, quote, "My heart is what it." Wait, my heart and was in.
She was probably enjoying the night on New Year's Eve.
She got her merds all mixed up. Okay.
Yes.
My heart.
She might have had a couple of champagnes.
I'm going to change it for her.
At the party.
My heart was and is in the right place.
There you go.
I got vaccinated out of love, while anti-vaxxers did everything out of hate.
Everything.
I have to die. Oh, no, sorry. If I have to die because of my love for the world, then so be it.
I feel.
But I will never regret or apologize for it. end quote.
I can tell you exactly what the fuck happened to her at her her New Year's Eve party.
Somebody read her tweets from the last couple of years and had some thoughts.
Said like, "Oh,
she's not apologizing."
Right. And she left that party and she's like, I'm gonna tell the world exactly what I think. And she didn't think it through very well, hence her little it wasn't a run-on sentence. It was garbage. It was like she just was and is what she was trying to say. And then she said is and is was and
Funny thing about that last sentence before we get into the real heart of the matter of what she's trying to say here.
It's funny you bring that up.
I know, right? Jokes. Anyway, she says that she'll never regret or apologize for it. Well, funny thing is, so I screenshot this when I came across it on Twitter on January 1st. And a few hours later, I was going back to show somebody else and forgot that I had screenshot it. Thank God I did. Because I went back to her page to try to find it and show somebody else. And she had deleted this tweet. So
looks like somebody made her apologize.
Looks like she may have got a little too far out over her skis on whatever she was trying to claim there. And I'm not going to say she regretted it because clearly she does not regret it. She won't apologize. But I just thought that was funny. But unfortunately for her, the internet is eternal and we have screenshot buttons.
People don't forget.
And now
why don't you go piss your pants again? That's in the first grade. People don't forget.
So before we move on out of this segment, obviously the heart of the matter, again, no pun intended, is this idea, this very...
YouTube? Chill, baby.
You see...
Daddy, chill.
You've seen this common thread run throughout weapons meme destruction quite a bit over the past couple of years. This idea of Manicheanism and looking at the world as light versus dark. And regardless of which side you put yourself in, almost invariably, everybody puts themselves on the light side. And that means that you and everybody who agrees with you are always right. You always have the right motives. You always do everything for the right reason, even if it's the wrong outcome. You are always good and virtuous, and everybody on the dark side is dark.
It's a good
always
thing Vietnam never happened.
Bad. They have bad motives. They did everything for the wrong reason and yada, yada, yada. That is Miss Dr. Natalia. I don't know what she's a doctor of. That is Miss Dr. Natalia's worldview. It's very Manicheist. It is, she is good and righteous and holy and does everything out of love. And everybody who disagrees with her does it out of hate and is just a miserable, terrible person.
Hence the Ukrainian flag.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough of Natalia. I want to get to the crux of the matter. I want to know what the hell this ancient elephant is peddling child porn for.
Yeah, I know. The big woolly. Is the woolly mammoth and Mastodon? Is that the same animal?
I always thought they were, but I think they're slightly different. It's like Homo erectus and
like,
Homo limpticus.
It's like a buffalo
like
versus a cow.
Right, exactly.
Very close.
Exactly. Like they could have an illegitimate child together.
We are not archaeologists or biologists or whatever ologist studies.
We don't follow
the difference between mastodons and...
We don't follow the science. But what we do follow...
But we defer to the experts. Right. Always, YouTube.
If you want to get in the comments, explain to us what...
We defer.
If you haven't canceled us yet, and we're still up on YouTube, tell us what the difference between a mastodon and a woolly mammoth is. I think... Thinking about it again, like I think it's. I don't want to weigh in on it.
Tangent's getting way too far afield.
It is like it's bugging me though. It's going to be right in the back of my skull. But anyway, Dane, you tell me about like the Mastodons. It's a great band too, by the way.
So
wonderful band.
I have a couple articles here, and I'm going to give them to you in the chronological order as they came out because this whole situation about and. To play on with David's work or David's joke about extinct and kiddie porn. How are those two things connected?
Well, one would hope that kiddie porn was extinct, but it's very alive and aware.
It should be. It should go the way of the mastodon or woolly mammoth.
An
Maybe
asteroid
both.
Should hit it right in the fucking face and it should never exist again.
Mastodon is an alternative to Twitter, a social media site, which According to an article on November 28th, 2022, so not that long ago, we have a Washington Post article with the title that says, Democrats join Twitter alternative Mastodon in protest of Musk. Again, no shockers there. We did an episode on Truth Social. Basically, as the rats are leaving the ship, they're trying to figure out which life raft they're going to go to. Some going to Truth Social, some going to Mastodon. But basically, the rule of thumb is anywhere but Twitter, right? Because, as you know, Musk is terrible and everything he touches turns to shit, according to these people. Now,
that all drive tests.
That was the exactly. That was the end of November 2022, and then from the Post Millennial on January 2nd, 2023, we have a report that says, "quote Majority of content on Mastodon's social media site is child porn. A majority of the content, not a fringe 1 or 2% that Mastodon is working diligently to eradicate." A majority of the content over there is child porn. Now, that's problematic, to use the left's. They like to always say that's problematic or whatever. They have these little catchy buzzwords. That's problematic. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're thinking,
Dan, you look really triggered right now.
I'm triggered AF. You guys are probably thinking, hey, just based on those two titles, I think you guys are being unfair, because by juxtaposing those two, are you suggesting that they're leaving Twitter and taking their kiddie porn with them to Mastodon? And the answer to that
would appear so.
We're not sure. But we don't need to make that claim to say what we are going to say about this particular topic.
And that's all I said, is it would appear. So I didn't say it was so. I'm not Picard. Anyway, it's just weird. Like, I know that we've all been in that space, in that weird time where you're talking about something, then all of a sudden the mood strikes you, so to speak, and your brain goes elsewhere. I don't know.
I'd like you to be specific about what this mood is and where your brain goes in light of the subject matter.
Usually.
It's not
usually. If a man is having a conversation, then all of a sudden his hormones kick in. He doesn't go to child porn. He goes to, like, YouTube or YouPorn, the X-Hamster, all the unextinct.
You're just going to name a bunch of sites.
If you haven't checked them out, they're wonderful places. No, but I didn't know that that ranting and raving about politics in one hand on a social media platform went hand in hand with an obscene, fucking perverse, illegal. Would you say that I would argue that this is like the worst kind of thing that you could ever possibly do to anything on this earth, ever?
Yeah, I mean, especially when we think about what is it that's
cheese pizza.
What is it that's so unseemly about this is the fact that these are the most vulnerable members in our entire society. They can't protect themselves. It's basically them and, any people that have...
They can't consent. They aren't of age.
Yeah,
right.
Some people that have like a disability that can't care for themselves. Like, these are the groups of people that are the most fragile from the context of being taken advantage of. And that's why they need to be protected at all costs. That's why anything even remotely trending in the direction of this stuff being
by people that
passed around is uncomfortable for the vast majority of
by
us.
People that hold themselves to the highest of moral standings that could possibly ever be had, that they want every person in this world to be as successful as the next person. And to say, yes, Black Lives Matter, and we need to get rid of systemic racism within this country. And then all of a sudden you're looking at an 8-year-old performing sexual acts. Like, there's I hate to say it, but there's a disconnect there. There's two different things. Like, you're trying to protect one population that you say can't protect itself, but then you go for the only population that we all agree that can't protect itself, and it's abound on your fucking platform. That's a problem. That's two different messages that you're sending on the same platform. So
Well, and here's the thing that I want to say about this topic, and this is kind of a rule of thumb that you can apply to all of the relationships in your life, not just, politics on social media sites or just interacting with people on social media sites in general, is pay attention to the things that people, again, take them at face value at their own words. Pay attention to what they claim outrage over versus the things that they don't. And so here's what I mean by that. We don't even have to go the next, conspiratorial step and say, oh yeah, well, a majority of the content over on Mastodon is this stuff because these were the people that were doing it on Twitter and they're taking it with them. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that these people aren't actually engaging in it. They're not looking for it. They're not seeking it out. None of that. I'm going to say that. But what I am saying is that it's a known quantity now that Mastodon is the primary purveyor in terms of social media sites of child pornography. Previously, Twitter had that problem before Elon Musk came in and said, in addition to free speech being a big deal for him, the number one thing that he wanted to take control of at Twitter was get the child porn off of Twitter.
Fuck you, Elon.
Because the last, whether it be owners or managers or controllers, whatever you want to call them, the last group of people that had all of the control that we've been talking about for weeks, enough control to ban accounts and work with the FBI to make sure that the right information was getting out there or whatever. They had intense controls on a lot of other aspects of society, but somehow child porn was just all over the place.
Whoops.
And so looking through that lens of these, again, this is the Washington Post. This isn't me categorizing these people. The Washington Post saying Democrats join Twitter alternative Mastodon and protest over Musk is they'll claim vehement outrage over everything Elon Musk is and stands for. And this is parlaying back into the whole Manicheanist thing. Because he's on the dark side, they can't admit that he does even one good thing right. They can't even sit down and say for a second, well, you know what? Hate this guy 99.9% of the time, but at least he's getting child porn off of Twitter. Can't do that. They would rather go to an alternative where it is a known quantity that child pornography is all over the place and turn a blind eye to that, show no outrage or concern for that at all, just to get away from Elon Musk.
Well, here's the thing.
As bad as he might be, at least he's trying to eradicate child porn on the social media website that he's controlled. And so if we are judging these people by their acts in being outraged over Elon Musk, but not over child porn on Mastodon, sufficient that they're just flooding over in Mastodon in record numbers, that should tell you a little bit about the content of the character of these individuals who claim such outrage over Elon Musk and Twitter.
Well, the thing is, too, is like, and I know what you're saying to yourself, dear listener, is that you're saying, well, how could they possibly know, or how can they stop any of these just arbiters of child pornography on their platform? Like, it's a social media platform. How can they be the regulators of something like that? Well, they regulated stories that came out about politicians. They swayed votes to and for certain people that they had prevalence to. So for us to sit here and say, like, hey, it's cherry picking to some degree. It's like, yes, there might be trolls that are just flooding this thing that they don't want to succeed with child porn. That's fine. But if you even make the argument that they can't stop them from doing that's impossible to do it. Well, how many articles did you see on Hunter Biden's laptop this last election cycle?
None over at Twitter.
None over at Twitter.
Not without getting banned.
And now it's coming out that Elon is saying, hey, they had mechanisms in place that stopped that kind of stuff from happening. Why didn't they put those mechanisms in place to stop the child porn?
Exactly.
Because it wasn't a fucking issue for them.
It wasn't a priority.
There you go.
Just like it's not a priority in terms of keeping them away from Mastodon now. And to David's point about, okay, what can the individual user do, right? They don't have control over stopping it. They're just using the platform. What can they do? Real simple. Don't go there. right? The whole vote with your dollars, vote with your feet kind of thing. You don't give Mastodon traffic, Mastodon dies. This is their entire argument for why they want to leave Twitter. They want to see, the Mastodons are, they want to see Twitter die, right? So again, take them at their own logic. They want to see Twitter die. How does Twitter die? You starve it of traffic, because if it's starved of traffic, then advertisers don't pay to advertise there, and then it doesn't have any money and it runs out. Or people aren't there to pay Elon his $8 for his Twitter Blue or whatever, and it dies. So their logic in their own brains is telling them, if I stop using Twitter, Twitter will die. So on an individual personal capacity, yes, they can't control the flow of content. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, say that David was right. It's nothing but trolls that are putting all this stuff on Mastodon trying to bring it down, because that's where all the Democrats are going. Let's assume all of that's correct. Then don't fucking go there. If you know that a majority of its content is child pornography,
friend that's into child
don't go there.
You don't hang out with them. Like
Pretty simple stuff.
If you knew that one of your friends was a known child pornographer or was just really fucking into it, you'd be like, okay, that's the last time I'm talking to Ricky. Like,
I love that he named him. And then
he's a fictional character, and I have to give him a name. Hey, Rick, stop it. Knock it off, you knucklehead. Anywho, it's a very simple concept. Just don't go there, like my esteemed colleague was just saying.
Yeah.
But other than that, on a more cheery note, on Epstein didn't kill himself.
Despite the fact that that segment probably could have fit in the Epstein segment for very on-the-nose reasons, we have a different topic. A topic coming from a recent study that suggests that distrust of government is bad for you.
Oh.
Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, all right, without them telling me what happened in this study, let's just do a thought experiment saying, what could they possibly point to suggest that it's actually bad for you? Because really, you know, we're talking about a mental disposition or a principled stance against whatever government stands for, right? How could that be like physically bad? How could that harm your health? I don't know, Dane. Maybe it causes anxiety or stress, and you know your cortisol levels go
stress,
up, and
cortisol,
you know heart issues.
Cortisol.
Maybe that was it. Well, you are a much more insightful and intelligent person than the quote-unquote experts. The researchers from Canada that did a study suggesting that C-word, V-word hesitancy is correlated with a higher risk of traffic accidents.
What?
Yes, completely jettisoning with the idea.
Did you just invent a word?
Well, to jettison is jettison. Not a word? It might not be.
Jettisoning. Fuck, that's hard.
It's probably because it ends in an N, and then you're trying to do an ing on top. It's stuff. Jettison Kawasaki sounds.
Don't do it too quick. You might be a racist.
How about this? I'll change the word. They're completely dispensing.
There we go.
With disregarding of
do another diss.
Of the
disrespecting
the notion that correlation does not equal causation. They did a study and they found that, again, according to their bullshit study, that not taking the C-word V medical procedure that we're not talking about.
The thing that was obviously the best thing that's ever happened.
Equal to a, quote, 72% increased relative risk of having a traffic accident versus those who did choose to get that medical procedure.
I have a feeling that Hillary was involved.
Now, again, you're thinking, guys, this is bananas. Well, first of all, we will post the link to the article discussing this from the Independent Institute, which has the link to the study itself. And so you can see that we're not making this up. Actual professionals, experts with all the fancy letters behind their name actually did a study and came to this conclusion that if you don't get the medical thing, you have a higher chance of getting in a traffic accident. Now, where's the connection?
Help me.
It's probably obvious to you.
It's clear.
It is a, quote, distrust of government or belief in freedom. I mean, come on. Who believes in antiquated ideas like freedom these days? It's 2021, David.
It's free.
Keep up with the times.
You can't be free anymore. You can be like free, approximately free.
A distrust of government or belief in freedom, along with, quote, antipathy toward regulation, leading to a more exposure to misinformation, insufficient resources, or other personal beliefs, seem to be the reason why simultaneously you would not choose to get a medical procedure that everybody has told you is safe and effective, and we're not debating that, YouTube. Just saying.
Steady chill.
You might not choose to get that. You also might get in traffic accidents because maybe the speed limit or failing to signal a lane change or all of the other dangerous things, right on red without coming to a full stop, those kind of things.
In layman's terms?
That's why not getting the medical thing makes you have more crashes, according to these experts.
So what they're saying is that these people are so fucking up their own ass with conspiracy theories from not getting that medical procedure that they're going, stop sign. That's exactly what they want me to do. Fuck it. And then plow on through it. And then all of a sudden, car crash. That's what they want you to think. They want you to think these people that don't want to get that procedure just go, oh yeah? Oh, okay. I won't put this plastic bag over my head. Fucking idiots. I can breathe so much better. No, it's just saying that anybody that doesn't get that medical procedure is dumb. They're uneducated. They eat paint chips, as Dane alluded to earlier. They sit on the couch, scratch their nuts, and collect their unemployment check because that's all they know how to do. They're getting paid by the government even though they're suspicious of the... Like, again, it goes down this path. It's like it paints this picture of somebody that has a different idea than them. So obviously, they can't be as smart as them. They can't have a better idea than the other people because all the other people are doing it.
Right.
And if all of us are doing it, it can't be wrong, right?
Right.
Cite child pornography.
Just for a small example. But before we get into, again, the sort of Epstein moment that's going on with this sort of mentality of if you trust the government, it's bad for your health, literally, is from my reading of the study, they didn't really analyze the opposite of what happens to people when they have a lot of trust in government. Well, I guess by the last tally, if we're looking at the democide numbers for just the 20th century alone, that seemed to have pretty negative outcomes for a little north of 200 million people. And again, just to redefine that term for you, democide is defined as deaths by one's own government. So not death by civil war or death by war between a foreign nation or death by any number of other causes that could lead to the demise of an individual human being, but deaths by your own government where they say, hey, you citizen that I'm supposed to be ruling in favor of, that I'm supposed to govern in your best interest, get on this train car, line up in front of that ditch, go into that shower, stand in front of my, heavily armed military members, et cetera, all of the ways that, citizens were put to death by their own governments. Little north of 200 million people in the 20th century alone. And those were direct deaths that flowed from a broad mentality in the population of a lot of trust in government. One might say too much. But we don't have studies.
But
on
Dane,
any of that.
the government's never lied to us.
Ever. They always tell the truth.
They've never done that. They never lied to us on an auspicious occasion that, we needed to go to war for 20 years and just throw death and mindless destruction at something that was never meant to get fixed ever. That we left, and clearly it was never meant to get fixed because we didn't do a fucking thing to fix it over there, and now it's all only created a vacuum. If only that had happened so you could have your conspiracy theories about why you shouldn't trust your government. Me? I'm getting my 25th medical procedure tomorrow.
And listen, before we before we move on to the main part of the episode, just the cosmic justice of this all, of how everything just falls into place so well. That article about the study was published on December 27th, 2022. And the very next day, on December 28th, 2022, we have this article from the New Yorker titled, "The Case for Wearing Masks Forever." A ragtag coalition of public health activists believe that America's pandemic restrictions are too lax, and they say they have the science to prove it. Now, all I'll say about that is the fact that that article came out the day after the other one, talking about the too much distrust of government is bad for you, is just so cosmically hilarious. Because if you happen to fall in the camp that too much distrust of government is bad for you and therefore we should trust it more, that's how you wind up with brain dead takes like this. I'm going to let you read the New Yorker article by going to the show notes page or clicking the comments down underneath these videos, or click the links to see about the science that these ragtag, and just look how they refer to them. That's just hilarious to me. A ragtag coalition of public health activists, right? It's kind of like this scrappy little bunch pushing back against the big guys. Do they ever describe the people all throughout the C word times as a ragtag group of people who had other things to say than the establishment about the prevailing medical narrative? They weren't no ragtag coalition. They were just trying to all the bad stuff.
People just fear-mongering and trying to make a name for themselves during a time of crisis.
It's funny, but in terms of the science to prove it, we talked about this all throughout the last couple of years, and we're going to share the link again because it can't be shared enough. The website is covidchartscnnforgot.com. And on there, you can go and you can click interactively. It's got little charts and you get a pick. Where on the line do you think the mask policy was instituted? Because you would think it would be pretty obvious, right? Cases go way, way up. Mask policy, cases go way, way down. I'll tell you this, I'm a spoiler alert for you. If you answer the interactive quiz that way, you're going to get a 0%. Suggesting that the shotgun splatter chart of the impact that mandatory masking had on cases versus not in terms of slowing them down was so statistically irrelevant that to say that somebody has the science to prove that, quote unquote, the case for wearing masks forever is scientifically viable as a position. Again, we're in year 3 now and they're still doing this. That's the kind of mentality that comes of too much trust in your government.
And to track back,
we suggest to you, dear listener or viewer,
to the beginning of Epstein didn't kill himself, of the distrust of government is bad for you. Do remember that the government, or the god of science, Anthony Fauci himself, came out and said that masks don't work at the beginning of this pandemic.
Just chew on that. Try it in.
And then came back out months later and said, no, masks do work. I was lying to you to save masks for the important people. That's all I got to say.
Yep. Again, take them at their own words.
Which they never are accountable for, by the way. So you want to trust implicitly the thing that never takes responsibility for any of its actions and holds you accountable for all of yours and all the things that you might have done as well. Just bear that in mind.
Food for thought. So with that being said, on to the main part of the episode and the massive story, at least in the United States. Again, we're gonna fill you in on some of the more intricate details for our non-United States listeners, because we don't know the inner workings of your legislative branches in your country, so we can't expect you to know everything about ours. So we will put some meat on the bones in that regard for you. But the big news story this past week, which was the first week of January 2023, is the vote for the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And it was supposed to be a pretty straightforward thing. The Republicans took over the House, not by a large margin, but did take over the majority in the House during the midterm elections this past November. And so it was supposed to be a pretty straightforward thing. put Kevin McCarthy forward. He's been around since, I want to say, 2010, maybe a little earlier. So he's got time. He's got tenure.
Yes.
He's the guy to lead the show for the Republicans. And as long as the majority in the House, the Republicans, all vote for McCarthy, should be a pretty, simple thing. One vote, he gets 218. That's the magical number. You got to get 218 votes from the current incoming Congress to become the Speaker of the House. Well, it took Representative McCarthy 15 votes and multiple days, which hasn't happened in over 100 years in American history, for it to be this difficult to seat a Speaker of the House. And it caused some problems. It specifically caused some problems on the right side of the aisle. We're going to just completely disregard the left for now because they were just, all giddy over this whole thing. Like, oh, look at the Republicans.
By the way, they called it a victory.
Blah, blah, blah.
They called it a victory that they didn't lose by as much in the election as they thought they were going to.
Yeah. The Democrats. Yeah.
They were. Well, the red wave never came. It's like you still lost.
Yeah. But we're going to set, for purposes of this discussion, we're going to set the Democrats aside because they're really a sideshow to what happened internally within the Republican Party, and to show you, to really pull the mask off.
Same fucking thing. They're
exactly.
The same goddamn thing.
There's the left and right wing on the same damn bird, and that bird is flying straight into the ground of $31 trillion in debt, taking us with it.
I thought you were going to say something else.
No, I'll let you do that later. So the internal strife of the Republicans in the House really sheds some light on exactly why it always is that no matter who gets elected, the American people are getting screwed. Or I think it was Tom Wood's law. I forget which one it was, 2 or 3 or something. No matter who you elect, you always get John McCain, which is a proxy for the American people getting screwed. So because the reason why it took 15 votes to get Kevin McCarthy elected Speaker of the House is because there were about 20 holdouts known. Jesus. Not all of them were in, but a large chunk of them were in what's called the Freedom Caucus, which within the House of Representatives, just like cliques in high school, right? Representatives separate themselves out into little caucuses that have their own little interests. So like, for example, there is the Black Congressional Caucus where like elected Black members have form a coalition to advance legislation that helps Black people. There's the, Hispanic Caucus. There's a caucus for pretty much everything. But a
caucus for every occasion.
But one caucus, especially within the Republican Party, is called the Freedom Caucus. And the Freedom Caucus, ostensibly, their large overarching policy objectives are what they would consider to be, as the name suggests, the most pro-freedom stuff. And that's usually, let's be fiscally responsible, let's, uphold family values like social conservatism type stuff, but that's not a key thing. Basically, let's keep government limited as much as possible, right? The American people are adults. They can handle their own affairs. We don't need to be intervening in everything. Let's kind of pull back on regulation. Let's pull back on taxes. That's generally the policy objectives of the Freedom Caucus. Now, the entire Republican Party will tell you, McCarthy, people like Dan Crenshaw, who are not members of the Freedom Caucus, will tell you these are important things to them too. Apparently just not as important as it is to the people in the Freedom Caucus. And that was the real strife between them, because these 20 members refused to vote for McCarthy for Speaker, which didn't allow him to get to the magical 218, which is why it took 15 votes for it to finally happen. So with that sort of lay of the land out there, before I get into what Crenshaw had to say about it, David, if you're not completely bored to tears or asleep by now,
I want a fucking medal.
Any questions?
I want a medal. I let you say caucus for the last 10 minutes and did not make a stink, did not make a joke, did not say anything. I want my medal now.
Let's get David a medal.
I'm going to wear it. I'm going to put it right here. Medal for not making the stupid joke. Goes to David. Anyway, no, I have no stark opinions one way or another. It's just, why is this high school? I thought we were supposed to leave high school back in high school.
Because you never really do.
You never do.
You never do.
You're always talking about that. Oh, if he would have put me in, we'd have won state.
Get the ball in the mountains.
All them trees over there. Hit my nephew with a stake in the face. But I don't. It's disconcerting, and it's disquieting, and it's discomforting. See how I did 3?
Yeah.
You only
like
pull
it.
up 2.
Alliteration.
You only
dig
pull
it.
up 2.
I know.
That's what I do here.
It's good stuff.
Anyway, that our entire country, huge concepts, huge ideas, intermingling with other countries as well, is run like fucking high school.
Yeah.
That's terrifying to me. And every election is not just an election based off of what they're trying to do. They say that they're elected because of their politics and because of their policies. It's a popularity contest.
Yeah.
We are literally living in high school right now. And we expect these people that have the same ideology as high schoolers to be...
Same mentality as
well, excuse me, a mentality.
Yeah. Same maturity level, yeah.
You're right, exactly. We expect them to hand in their homework on time, done perfectly, and to accept responsibility for all of their actions here and all the outcomes of their decisions. Like high school, like adults when they aren't.
Yeah.
They don't behave like adults at all. They behave like children. They are still children. They fucking hold you accountable. Again, to go back to Epstein, they hold you accountable for the things that you might have done, that you may or may not be doing. But they can't even be held accountable for the things that you can prove that they did. Nancy, I'm looking at you. Chuck Schumer.
I mean, even... And
McConnell.
And the guy that's going to
Keep
feature
going.
heavily in this segment, Crenshaw, was either like second or third highest performing stock portfolio in all of Congress.
Interesting.
Oh, fiscally conservative, right as rain, honor. I know that's Boy Scouts, but honor Navy SEAL kind of.
It's the 3.
Whatever.
It's
2,
the
3, whatever.
Pieces.
Oh, I thought it was just whatever.
No, this
Doesn't
is
matter.
how many times they get.
You're right. I know.
They get
Whatever. I'm diminishing him in general.
No.
So anyway, but yes, to David's point about, running it like high school or whatever, despite what people of our ilk would say about, government being bad, we don't even have to go down the evil route. All we have to do is peel back all of the smoke and mirrors, all the facade, all of this, like, when they do their ceremonies, that's all this pomp and circumstance because they're so important and they're
they
leaders
award themselves.
They're leaders, and you're getting ready to hear what Crenshaw thinks about his mission and being a leader and all that kind of stuff. And when you peel all of that fluff away and you get down to the bare bones of it, they're just high school children with their own selfish biases. And what's even more important than that is we hit this key on this podcast all the time is incentives matter. And these people who are acting like high schoolers are doing it with your money and no accountability. How could you possibly, in a million lifetimes, assuming they're perfect angels and that they're not motivated by greed and envy and all of the other, or even evil things that, sometimes we attribute to government, and they do some pretty evil shit. But even if we say that they don't do any of that and they're perfect angels doing everything for the right reason, they couldn't possibly get the answer right more often than they get it wrong because all of the incentives are perverse. And all of the incentives are being thrown in a pot, like we said, of a bunch of high schoolers that are engaging in selfish, backbiting, biased behavior towards each other. You're never going to have good outcomes come from that. So rather than those of us who are severely distrustful of government and want to see it reduced down to the smallest level possible of being naive utopians, it's the people who think that in that situation, you're going to get good outcomes. You're the naive utopian. You have to be completely disregarding of all of human nature and millennia of learned history and human experience and seeing how human beings react when they're put in one situation versus another to come to the conclusion that this can be run in a responsible, efficient manner. It can't. It never will. Everything about the entire stew that this is brewing in is all wrong. All the ingredients are wrong if your goal is efficient, effective outcome that governs to the best circumstances for the most people. It just ain't going to happen. You're living in a fantasy land if you think it can. But David.
So without further ado,
sorry, before I didn't know if you
I've said
Dan.
my piece. I just want you to show them what
Okay.
Tell them what you told me. Tell them what you told me.
So we're going to play one clip. And again, this is not clipped up from a news article or anything. This is 1 minute and 7 seconds of Crenshaw talking to the press. He's clearly very frustrated because these 20 Freedom Caucus holdouts will not vote for his guy, McCarthy. He was a McCarthy guy all the way. They refused to vote for his guy, and he's very upset about it. But look at how he frames the discussion and what he has to say about how dismissive he is of these Freedom Caucus members' concerns. So let's let you hear Dan in his own words first before we get on to what David and I have to say.
We all served in different ways, but we mostly served for the same reason, so that we would take the fight to the enemy, and the enemy would no longer take the fight to the American people. We had purpose. We had mission. That was our mission. We have mission up here. Some people have different priorities. Some people want to cut spending. Some people want to fix our mandatory spending problems. Some of us want to fix the border, deal with the Mexican drug cartels that are murdering tens of thousands of Americans a year by poisoning them with fentanyl. There's a lot of missions that we have up here. I don't think that the American people care about any of these so-called missions happening this week. Rules changes, who gets more power, who gets on what committee. I can't think of one American who gives a damn about any of that. They care about the mission. And the conservative agenda is one that will accomplish the mission for the American people the best, but we can't start that agenda until we start governing. That's why we're up here, because we care about mission, we care about service, and we care about the American people, and we care about getting things done.
So, just a brief recap of the way he structured what he just said to put himself on the side of the good guys, standing opposite these obstinate 20 Freedom Caucus members who refuse to just tote the party line. He first started with references to his military service, right? Because just like his namesake, John McCain, Patches McCain uses his military service as both a sword and a shield. He'll say, I'm a military member, I'm courageous, I'm brave, I sacrifice for my country. So whatever I say goes, right? That's his sword. That's how he attacks every issue. I know best because I am the best among us, right? This secular religion of worship of the military that we have in this country. Then he moves on to say a bunch of things very dismissively that some of us care about these things, like lowering the deficit and, the border wall and all that kind of stuff. Right.
Yada, yada, yada.
Some of us.
Who gives a fuck about that,
Well, if he's saying some of us, that at least implies that there's some that don't care about those things. Now, he would probably be able to say, well, those some that we're referring to that don't care about that is just on the left side of the aisle. But no, he doesn't make that clear. He's suggesting to you that some of those concerns may not be held even by people within his own party. Maybe himself, maybe Kevin McCarthy. He goes on. He says, fights over this last week over McCarthy are fights that have to do with rules changes and who gets committee seats and who gets that special word, power. And then none of those things really matter because he doesn't know a single American who cares about those things. The internal workings of how Congress, or more specifically, the House of Representatives is supposed to conduct its business. The rules. We'll get to that in a second. And finally, he ends it by starting where he began and talking about mission. Mission, mission, mission. What the people care about is accomplishing the mission. And you'll note that other than saying the mission is to do put into effect the Republican, the conservative agenda, and that's what's in the best interest of the American people. He's very nondescript, other than that, about what the mission is. And the reason for that is because Dan Crenshaw and McCarthy and all of the other RINO/neocons and people on the left side of the aisle, what they love more than anything in this world is a blank check. Don't be too specific about the mission. Don't be too specific about where the money should go or why. Just make sure that there's this abstract concept of a mission out there and we're going for it. And we need as much leeway as possible, as few rules, as few oversight as possible to make sure that we accomplish that mission, which only we know of, only we can accomplish, and we have to be trusted to do it. That's what Crenshaw had to say in a nutshell. And it speaks volumes about him, what his motives are, and whether he is to be trusted with this all-important mission. As he'll suggest to you that he and people like Kevin McCarthy should lead, and not these obstinate holdout Freedom Caucus members who are just here to throw a wrench in the operation because they're narcissistic terrorist enemies. He literally said that about them on a different clip, which you'll be able to see on the show notes page. They don't have that mission because they're terrible people. But, Manicheanism. It rears its ugly head whether you're on the left or the right side of the aisle. Yeah.
Call them terrorists.
At one point, again, we have another link. It's from a Tucker Carlson segment. We're not going to play the whole thing here. It's about 2 minutes long. But there was a couple different media appearances that Crenshaw made, one on CNN and one on, I think, a podcast or something, where he referred to, again, he's not talking about Democrats. He's talking about members of his own party, these Freedom Caucus members. He calls them terrorists. He calls them enemies. He says that they're holding out in terms of voting for McCarthy as speaker is because they're narcissistic, right? It's almost as if he gave these media interviews holding up a mirror, but the irony would be too thick for him on that one. But yeah, that's how he refers to people in his own party who allegedly have many of the same policy objectives as him, simply because they don't agree with him as fast as he wants them to on whether McCarthy should be speaker. We'll get to more of that in a second.
But the whole point is that it's rhetoric. Whichever way you cut it, it's the Democrats calling you people that don't get that medical procedure, uneducated, illiterate, grandma hater, grandma killer, this, that, and the other. You made your decision out of hate, yada, yada, yada. It's saying that if we don't win, democracy loses. It's
George W. Bush, if you're not with us, you're against us.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's so banal. It's so mundane. I'm fucking bored. Like, can you guys please get together and at least spice it up? Can you guys please, have a fucking original thought instead of just, if somebody disagrees with me, he's Hitler. If somebody disagrees with me, this country is going to fall. If somebody doesn't vote for me, 9/11 will happen again. January 6th was the worst day of our lives. No, I had a pretty decent January 6th, 2021, didn't you?
Yeah.
It
and 22 and
wasn't shit to me because I wasn't.
Or if you're listening to Joe now, it's been moved back because it's July 6th now.
Oh, July 6th.
Did you see that flub last week?
I didn't see
he was giving a speech about, January 6th, and he called it July 6th.
He's like, God damn it, Joe. It would be funny if it wasn't so sad. Bless your little heart, Joe. You're going out there and you're fighting the good fight. But anywho, all I'm saying is that, it's not even... This is they're running for actual national Congress, national positions, like you would run for a fucking high school student government position.
Yeah.
It's not even entertaining anymore. Well, my opponent doesn't want you to be able to use your body how you want because he believes that you shouldn't be able to get an abortion. Vote for me. I'm Democratic. But I don't mention the fact that I want to shove something into your arm that you may or may not want, which totally negates the whole part of my body, my choice. But I'm a good guy. We're the moral high ground. Go fuck yourself. Like, and then the Republicans is the same rhetoric, just spiced a little different. Like, oh, the mission. I'm going to talk to my people, and it's about the mission. And because they're gun owners, they'll know about the mission. Go fuck yourself, Crenshaw. No one gives a fuck about the mission of solving the border crisis. Solve the goddamn border crisis. It's not a mission. It's solve it. It's been there forever. Are you gonna? No, you're not going to. You're gonna keep running on it, saying that you will, but you'll never fix it because you'll run on it again in 4 years, 6 years, whatever the fuck your next term election is. So again, you'll use it as spicy language. You'll use terrorism because you went over and fought terrorists, right? Okay, cool. Stop using it in your language against Americans. You fucking asshole.
Against people of your own party who disagree with you.
You, of all people, should know what a terrorist looks like. It ain't one of us that just has a different idea than you, asshole. So that's my 2 cents.
And, you know, it's important to kind of, again, going back to the lay of the land here, of why these 20 or so holdouts were not voting for McCarthy for 14 rounds before he finally got either enough yay votes or people that simply vote present, which lowers the number from 218. For everyone that votes present, it lowers the number from that he needs to get it from 218 on down. So there had to be the right mixture of people that changed their votes from previously saying no on McCarthy or voting for somebody else to saying either yes, or enough people saying, I'm just simply present, I'm not voting for or against him, but to lower the number to get him there. And the reason why those 20 individuals were holding out is because he is seen by them, and again, let's use their political opponents, the left side of the aisle, in terms of characterizing these 20 people. These are allegedly the most radical, right-wing, fringe elected representatives in Congress. That's what the Democrats would say of members of the Freedom Caucus. Why? Because members of the Freedom Caucus are most ardently pushing for the things that they profess to care about, right? All that stuff, like I said, border security, fiscal conservatism, all of that kind of stuff, right? And because they push the hardest for it and refuse to compromise, they are seen as the fringe radical, blah, blah, blah. They view McCarthy as too much of a team player. McCarthy will give too many concessions to the left. He'll engage in too much horse trading with the left, such that he doesn't really uphold conservatives' ideal. This is where the name RINO, the derogatory term RINO, comes from in terms of Republicans, because it stands for Republican in name only. These are people that are elected Republicans, but they don't govern like Republicans because they vote for bigger bailout packages and more money and more spending and higher debt ceiling and blah, 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 which are not fiscally conservative. And members of the Freedom Caucus take issue with that. So what they wanted to do is saying, we have the numbers to make sure you don't get elected speaker. And if you want our votes or for us to change our vote to president, you need to give us some concessions for us to be able to trust you that you're not going to go and be Mr. Bipartisan with the left all the time. Because as we've said on the podcast before, what is bipartisanship? It's when the stupid party and the evil party come together to fuck the American people. When you hear the word bipartisan, that's the mental imagery I want you to have. When they agree on something, it ain't going to work out for you.
Make your butthole clench.
Pretty simple. And so he was too much of a bipartisan guy for the Freedom Caucus. Now, you might say that should be a merit for him. You might disagree with these members. But now I want you to consider what Crenshaw had to call these people: terrorists, enemies, all of the narcissists, all of these derogatory terms about people in his own party because they were holding out. Well, it's a rather important question. What were they holding out for? We have an article here from Zero Hedge that lays out 7, and I'm sure they asked for more, but 7 concessions that they got from McCarthy in order for him to eventually get the speakership. And we'll just go through them real quick. The first one is they got a thing called a Jeffersonian motion, which means that it only takes one congressman acting on his or her own to make a motion to remove the speaker if they go back on their own policy or agenda. So that's a rather important one. If they're going to hold out and say, McCarthy, give us all this stuff, well, he can say, yeah, I'll give it to you. And then once he's speaker, give him the finger and then violate all of that. that stuff. It's rather important that it only takes one member to be like, to hold him accountable and say, hey, you turncoat, you lied to us. I move that you be voted out of being speaker. Okay, maybe that's neutral, but whatever. That is an internal rule of the House, which is meant to have some element of accountability, right? Number 2, a church-style committee will be convened to look into the weaponization of the FBI and other government organizations against the American people. Does Crenshaw all of a sudden not agree with that? Because that's a concession that they got from McCarthy. You've heard all this big talk from Republicans saying that they're going to do this, especially after the release of the Twitter files. But why did it need to be a concession if they were already planning on doing it? Or maybe they were just saying what they needed to get elected by their constituents and then had no intention to do it. Well, the Freedom Caucus members made sure that it becomes a reality. Number 3, term limits will be put up for a vote. Now, take what I just said about bipartisanship and put a pin in that, because most people, American people, if you ask them, they think term limits is a good idea. I don't. That's another discussion for another day. Doesn't matter. A lot of people do think that. Crenshaw, a lot of Republicans think that. So Freedom Caucus members say, let's put it up for a vote. Let's make this thing a reality. Let's stop talking about it and let's be about it. Number 4. This is a huge one. Bills presented to Congress will be single subject, not omnibus, which means a whole bunch of things together at once, many of them that have nothing to do with each other.
Which we've discussed multitudes of times on this very podcast.
Right. With all the attendant earmarks, and there will be a minimum 72-hour minimum period to read the bills before they vote on them. Wow. What a novel concept. Instead of voting on a package of 40 different proposals in one bill, we're going to make sure that every bill that comes forward has one subject.
If you say nay, we make you a fucking villain on the goddamn media circuit.
Right.
Because you don't want
now
to
we
sell
know what
away
they're voting
people's rights.
for.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Now we know what they're voting for. When you had these omnibus bills, you would have a bunch of things that had nothing to do with each other.
The Children's Bill of 1922 to make sure that every child has food that night. Meanwhile, it's like, oh, and then we're also going to arm the Iranians and we're going to attack these people. And then we're also going to subjugate these people. And then but all of that was tertiary to the children.
Yeah.
The children.
At 0 hour, after having nobody read it, but Congressman and woman A and B agree in some closed-door meeting that they're going to put some pork in this bill to make sure that some money goes to her district and some money goes to his district and everybody's happy so they can get reelected. That gets put in the bill at 0 hour that nobody reads, and boom, that's how you wind up with $31 trillion of debt, among other reasons.
Wow.
But that's the way, those were the rules. And again, keep all of this in mind with what Crenshaw had to say about he doesn't know a single American that cares about the rules that govern the House of Representatives, that care about who sits on the committees. Because again, the committees are where the initial legislation is drafted before it goes to the main floor. So whatever they're being voted on to make law that rules over 330 million of us, first comes out of the committees, which tells you that the committee seats are very, very powerful positions. So, yeah, it matters. A fucking lot who sits on those committees. And power.
Well, he didn't talk to us, did he?
No, he doesn't know a single American.
Did he call us? Did he give us a ring-a-ding-ding-dong?
Last I checked, I'm an American, and I care about these things.
I don't think he's on the email list. I don't think he's on our Mastodon.
So that rule is a huge one. Making bills single subject, and you have at least 3 full days to read it before it's voted on. That's important.
It's fair.
Number 5, the Texas border plan will be put before Congress. The 4-pronged plan aims to, quote, complete physical border infrastructure, fix border enforcement policies, enforce our laws in the interior, and target cartels and criminal organizations.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Crenshaw hail from Texas?
And in his statement that we just played for you, he referenced how the border's a big problem and thousands of Americans are being killed every year by fentanyl flooding across the border. So again, his rhetoric suggests that he should be 100% on
and how long has he been
on
in
board
Congress?
with this?
Quite a while, right?
2012, 14, something like that. few terms.
So he's still in that mission, huh?
Yeah.
Mm.
He's still on that mission that hasn't been accomplished yet. Number 6, COVID mandates will be ended, as will all funding for them, including so-called emergency funding. Again, you would think that Crenshaw,
YouTube,
based on his
chill.
again,
Daddy chill.
these are our elected representatives that are
These are-
discussing this, YouTube, not
Not us. Not personal opinion.
We're just saying.
We're
We're
saying it out loud.
just saying it.
Just saying it out loud.
And finally, number 7, budget bills would stop the endless increases in the debt ceiling and hold the Senate accountable for the same. So what does that mean? If you've been following American politics for a couple years, you see periodically this thing called this fight over raising the debt ceiling. A couple times over the last few years, the debt ceiling has expired without it being raised and the government shut down for a few days. David and I were, all celebration. Everybody else was all tears and pity. But what this is suggesting is we're not just going to carte blanche say, well, the debt ceiling is X trillion now, and we're going to raise it to X trillion times 2, for the next fiscal year. It's if we raise the ceiling at all, we want to know what we're raising it for and where that money's coming from. We want to re-examine the budget and say, is there waste going on here? Is there more going there than needs to be to accomplish whatever objective we're trying to accomplish?
Is there something illegal happening right here that we should probably get rid of?
Let's take a closer look at where the money's currently flowing and seeing, well, maybe rather than raising the debt ceiling, we can shift some money that's being wasted over here over to this new thing that we need to get funded. Again, seems like a relatively politically neutral thing, whether you're on the left or the right, whether you're Dan Crenshaw or the Freedom Caucus, that you would say, yeah, it's a pretty smart thing for government to do rather than just constantly signing the blank check for even more money and raising it again and again. Again, that's how you wind up with $31 trillion in debt. So these are some of the
Counts to 31 trillion, by the way. Takes a long time.
We'll see in like the year 4000
You're
when
right.
you're finished.
1, 2, 3. Go ahead. I'll start you off. I got you the first 3. Give me the next.
So these are some of the internal rules that Dan Crenshaw would have you believe that no self-respecting red-blooded American gives two shits about. This is stupid inside baseball stuff. None of this matters. How we govern is based on the nondescript abstract mission. Don't you understand?
You fucking idiot.
Myself, as Dan Crenshaw or our fearless leader, Kevin McCarthy, can be trusted implicitly to accomplish that nondescript abstract mission without all of these rules overseeing us and holding us accountable.
Sidebar.
Don't you know?
Sidebar. Huge fan of McCarthy's sister, though. Like, she got me through a lot of dark times. Jenny? Good for you. Good for you. She's not a big vaxxer. She's an anti-vaxxer.
Which we are.
Which we are not. YouTube, we are not.
As far as
we know. Not. But Jenny?
We say no more.
She's welcome on this podcast anytime.
So, I mean, that's really it. So now that you see what exactly the holdouts were for before McCarthy finally got his speakership, and you look at that juxtaposed with Crenshaw's rhetoric. So, and again, he is a proxy for the mentality of being a RINO, being a neocon in general, is they love the blank check just as much as their colleagues on the left side of the aisle. They will go on, and as David said, in WWE style, and they will pretend that they hate everybody on the left and they're terrible, irresponsible people that shouldn't have control of the government.
Work out with The Rock at fucking LA Fitness.
And that's why you're in debt, is because of those irresponsible money-spending Democrats and all of that kind of stuff. And we, the fiscal conservative Republicans, are the ones that need to be trusted. Well, regardless of who's been in control of Congress, and it's shifted back and forth over the years, the debt only ever seems to go in one direction. The waste only ever seems to go in one direction. And all of the consensus in the world only ever seems to do one thing: fuck the American people. So when Crenshaw says that he doesn't know a single American that cares about this stuff, I suggest that Crenshaw do one of two things: find more Americans to talk to, or quit being a lying piece of shit. Because we know that you know that the rules matter. As the old saying goes, You pick the game, I write the rules, I'll win every single time. The rules make all of the difference. And the reason why Crenshaw likes the rules the way they were and doesn't like these concessions is because just like his leftist colleagues, just like he now seems to argue and use rhetoric like by labeling his political opponents, even with his own party, terrorists, et cetera, is just like them in rhetoric, he is also like them in mentality. He wants the blank check. He doesn't want you asking him why he voted to send billions of dollars to Ukraine while people in the United States are still, have food insecurity, they're homeless, veterans are abandoned, get substandard health care at the VA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Patches McCain doesn't want you looking over his shoulder. Just like John McCain didn't, just like Kevin McCarthy doesn't, just like Mitch McConnell doesn't in the Senate, just like every single one of these politicians that tell you one thing and do a completely different thing. That's what Crenshaw stands for. And the fact,
He sounds like him.
don't get it misunderstood that our
like him.
attacking of him and the whole religion of military in the United States is not an attack on the military itself or military members.
Individuals.
It is calling out people like Crenshaw, as we called out by McCain, by hiding behind their military service, by using it to say, this is why you can't question me or my motives, while he continually fucks you without lube against your will. That is disgusting because he's preying on the supposed honor and respect and courage that it takes to be a military member and does it so that he can screw you with impunity. Don't let him do it. Don't listen to him.
Just say no.
And
kids.
definitely always pay attention to the details where the devil always lies.
So, with all that cheeriness being exposed in broad daylight, where can they find this episode, Dane?
They can find this episode at wdpodcast.com/128. They can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons and Meme Destruction. The video, I think we're safe for YouTube on this one, can be found at YouTube, Rumble,
We
Odyssey.
said Daddy Chill plenty of times.
Yeah.
So
Listen.
they should know.
Can be found on all the video platforms, YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey. Just search Weapons and Meme Destruction. They can link up with us on our other socials, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Truth Social. We have a private members only Facebook page. Just go to the website, support our work, $5 a month, get you into that. You can also catch us on Float, the Facebook alternative. And again, most importantly,
We are not on Mastodon. Most importantly, we are not on Mastodon and don't plan to be ever.
And if we are, Carlos, get us off now.
He who must not be named.
Oh, yes, I forgot.
God damn it.
Sometimes I get out ahead of myself. I start talking, things start flowing.
That's all right. It's all right. He gets one little
Gets one.
Everybody gets one.
If we are on, take us off of there ASAP. You
person that shouldn't have been named before, but it is not named now.
And now with that said, we'll see how this goes. We'll see if these rule changes actually have any substantive effect on the way that at least the House for the next 2 years, while it's under Republican control, actually operates. We'll see. We
let's.
We're not optimistic, but we remain hopeful.
It's going to be completely different. It's going to be so great.
Which is the best we
It's
can
going to be great.
in these trying times.
Because the last time they had control, we only got into a 20-year war.
Let's hope at least over the next 10 years, and it may not have even been 10, that it stops exploding from 13 trillion to 31 trillion.
I like that you use that terminology.
That the explosion slows down a little bit in terms of how much we're getting screwed and taken to the cleaners.
Maybe a little less volume with the explosion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To go back to anything.
Pineapples.
Anyway, so with all that being said, hopefully you've learned a little something here today. You're probably not happier. We can't guarantee that, but we can guarantee that we will tell you the truth every time. But all that being said, guys, stay safe, but more importantly, stay free.